Hello, everyone. I'm Mariela Condorena. Thank you all for finding time and visiting today's webinar. Welcome again. Before we start, let me explain some social media, some channels that we have network that you can visit. Please join us in Facebook. In Facebook, we have more than 17,000 members. In WhatsApp, more than 2,000 and 1,500 teachers. And in YouTube, we have 1,983 subscribers. And at the same, in Google side, we have 8,800 views. So now, news for you, teachers. We have new channels as Twitter and TikTok. Please join us. Now, some directions that you have to consider to participate in today's webinar. First, please type your questions in the comments section. The answers to your questions and comments will be replied by our guest speaker at the end of the webinar in the question time section. And when finishing the webinar, we will share a link for you to have access to the exit ticket, which will be available for 15 minutes, dear teacher. Now it's time to know our guest speaker. Okay, so please help me, Mr. Kurt Vilela. Can you introduce our speaker?
Hi. Yes, why not? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to present Patricia Arbona. She's a teacher specialized in segmental and suprasegmental phonology based in San Nicolas, Argentina, and holds a postgraduate language and phonology degree from Universidad de Buenos Aires. She has got vast experience in TFL as a teacher, trainer, and drama teacher. She has contributed articles to academic journals and has delivered presentations and workshops in both English and Spanish in Argentina, Peru, Ecuador, Italy, Poland, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and India, among other countries. Her particular areas of interest are holistic education, pronunciation, discourse analysis, and English as a lingua franca. As an independent researcher, she is exploring active learning and paralinguistics, and has done experimental work in Argentina, the USA, and Europe. She is the founder and director of Ludodrama, a group of teachers whose main concern is to improve the the quality of education. She today is gonna deliver us the following webinar, which is entitled The Cinderella Skill in Language Learning. Even though listening is the communication skill we use most frequently, it is also the least developed of the four macro abilities. For her personal experience, we know that all the attention is given to the aspects of language, such as grammar and vocabulary, in ways that do not recognize listening as having cardinal importance. Furthermore, test preparation and traditional curriculum do not facilitate communication skills, mainly because listening is not given a systematic place in the learning process. Dear Patricia, the audience is all yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I would like to share my presentation, if possible.
Of course, yes.
Okay. Can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see any face. Okay, but you are there, all right?
Yeah,
So-
yes, Patricia, we are here.
All right, okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, teachers of the world. I'm very pleased to be here with you today. And before starting, I would like to say
Excuse
a
me,
big,
Patty, can you turn on your camera?
sorry.
Yeah, yes.
I will
No
have to,
worries, it's okay. Yeah,
it happens.
yeah, yes, I know.
That's why I can't see you.
Yeah, yes, I can see you now. My
Sorry.
beautiful friend. Okay, you can start now. You can share
Okay.
your slides here, Patty.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry for the mistake. Okay, well,
Okay, thank you.
so let's start again. Well, as I was saying, I'm very pleased to be with you all. And before starting, I want to give a big thanks to English teachers in Peru and Mariela Condorera and her great team for the invitation to deliver this webinar today. Well, before starting, we need to consider that we are in a period of transformation in education, and this pandemic crisis has greatly accelerated the process. And English is no exception, especially today that English is used as a lingua franca. This means that we need to redirect our teaching aims and give the students what they really need in order to become effective communicators of English. The topic today is listening, the Cinderella skill in language learning. And today we play more emphasis to listening than ever before because the special status of English as an international language require us to pay attention to skills that are usually not as frequent as they should be. We should remember that today English is no longer the property of English speakers. It belongs to the whole world. This has given rise to a variety of accents, so students need to be aware of this variety, and they need to know that when they have the possibility of speaking with speakers whose mother tongue is not English, they will not differences with English speakers. Today, English speakers are having problems with their own language. Why? Because English is being influenced by the language spoken by the people who belong to other countries and who have settled down in England. So their English is also being influenced. So today, we need to change a different way, we need to use a different type of methodology in order to help our students understand and be understood. Well, as regards the title of my webinar, you may wonder why Cinderella. And I'm going to start with the first question. Of the 4 macro abilities, can we use the chat box, Mariela? Can you listen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question, and I would like the audience to use the chat box. Probably you will have to tell me what they write because I cannot see the chat box, okay?
Okay.
Right, well, the first question is, of the 4 macro abilities, speaking, listening, reading, and writing, which is the most frequently used in your classrooms? So write just the initial letter, and then you will tell me which is more frequently indicated in the chat boxes. What is it? Who can tell me? Mariela, can you tell me what the audience has written?
Yes, yes, Patty. We are reading the comments on Facebook. Please wait for for us.
Okay. So I would then, I'm not going to use the chat box if
Yeah,
you have to
yes.
go to Facebook. It's
Yeah,
complicated.
yes.
Okay. Well, don't worry. And I'll go on. Normally, in physical webinars, we can have a different type of interaction. Here online, it's rather complicated. But anyway, I normally ask this question when I start speaking, and the usual answer is writing. Writing is the most frequently used skill that is present in the classroom. And you know that in Peru, for example, or in Argentina, in Chile, in Uruguay, English is taught as a foreign language. This means that students, the only opportunity they have of to practice the language is in the classroom, because they do not have speakers moving around so that they will be able to listen and to practice the English they have learned. Consequently, we need to devote the time in the classroom to English, to practicing English. Normally, writing is used in order to reinforce what the students have learned. Of course, that writing is necessary, writing is important. The problem is that there is no connection between the writing activities and the speaking activities that the students can do using the information they have already been practicing through writing. Normally, when they are engaged in a speaking activity, they know a lot of rules, they have lots of vocabulary, but when they are interacting, they cannot relate all those rules they have been practicing in isolation in different types of writing activities when they have the opportunity to speak in the classroom. Why? Because we do not connect speaking and writing. We do not relate speaking and listening with the other skills. And what happens with listening? Listening is called the Cinderella skill because although it is a foundational skill because it forms the basis for all the other abilities, it has not got a systematic place in the process of learning and teaching. That is to say, it is not an integral part of the process. This means that the students are not taught the necessary strategies in order to listen correctly, in order to listen well. Remember that listening is evaluated, but not taught. So imagine students have to work doing some activity, listening to something recorded without having the necessary strategies. That's why they usually feel frustrated. And whenever teachers say, well, you'll have a listening activity, well, it's embarrassing for them. But is it their fault or is it ours? It is ours. And it is also the methodology that we are still using. As you see, listening is ignored. So listening is compared to Cinderella because she's alone. She's not taken into account. Well, the same happens to listening. Listening, when it is present, it is not given the importance it has, and on top of this, the strategies that are required are not present. Today, you will see the type of processes that can be used and the different techniques and strategies that may be used to enhance understanding, to enhance listening. Students, normally when you ask students, what is listening for you? And they say, understanding words. And that's not the correct answer, because it is not just understanding words. It goes beyond the meaning of the words. There are important elements that are not taken into account, and they are very useful when we are communicating. Today, we are going to consider those aspects which are crucial to understand and be understood. And here, these words that we have present in this first slide, being a good listener is one of the best ways to be a good communicator. This means that when you are, oh, sorry, not yet. When we are a good listener, we have the possibility to understand and be understood better, because when we are communicating, we are listening. Listening is an important part of the process of understanding and being understood. It is part of communication. Well, now there is a connection between listening and Cinderella. And some time ago, some researchers decided to find out how much information was present on the net, just on the net. They considered 7,500 articles, and this was the result. The winner was writing, then reading, speaking, and only 40% of the articles were devoted to dealing with listening. Fortunately, we are in the 21st century, and with this new status of English as an international language, well, teachers, scholars, and researchers decided to start investigating the importance of listening in the process of teaching and learning, because it has become crucial, because English is no longer the property of English speakers, and it is affected by a variety of accents around the world. So it is important that we should sharpen our students' ears so that they will be able to understand the new type of English we are having around the world. In spite of having lots of information and important authors and researchers who have been working since the beginning of this century, it is this importance of listening is not present in the classroom, and it is not even present in course books that have been published during this 21st century. Well, then it is our responsibility, because students are already complaining that they are not learning the language in the way they would like to be able to speak it. The problem is that normally when you ask students how they feel they are learning the language, they say, I normally ask my students and students who belong to other institutions, and the answers are always the same. They say that they not feel confident enough to be part of a conversation, and the reason is that they are afraid of committing mistakes and to cause breakdowns in communication. And another important feedback they normally give is that they cannot understand spontaneous speaking, the type of speech that is found in the street, for example, at the airport, at the club. So this is the type of English they need to know. Normally, when students learn the language at school, for example, it is too structured, and practically they repeat information by heart. And I always say that when the students, for example, recite a poem, or when they answer questions given by the teacher, these are not examples of communication. These are not examples of interactions. No, communication really takes place when the students are engaged in a communicative activity, when they are doing conversation activities. And interactions are the best way of indicating how the students are using the language they know. Unfortunately, speaking and listening are not given a place in the lesson every week. For this reason, we need to start thinking in what way speaking and listening should be present in order to enhance the main aim the students have in their minds, to be able to speak the language fluently. Okay. Now, why do we need a new methodology for listening? First of all, we are still having a traditional methodology. And it is based on repetition. It is based on fixed structures, and the students do not have the possibility of using their creativity. For example, instead of reciting a summary of a story, let's create a story. That's why drama is so important, and I'm very fond of using it as a resource in the classroom, because creativity and the possibility of interactions are always present in every activity we do. And it is in a fantasy land because the students are not exposed to the language. So exposure is not present practically in the classroom. And whenever it is present, it is for a specific purposes. So the students should be encouraged to listen to the language, because this is input from which they will learn. And part of that information that they are receiving will become theirs. It will become intake. Now, with the internet, they have the possibility of listening to a variety of accents which are present around the world. And when they start listening to this material on the net, they realize what they can't do. For this reason, we need to help them to improve their skills, and do not depend too much on writing, but start considering listening as a foundational skill. The first skill that we start using in our lives, which is it? Speaking or listening? It is listening. So let's remember how we learned our language when we were babies. Normally, a baby starts listening to the language before he starts speaking it. So for about a year, he listens to his parents and members of the family, but he not only listens to the words, he also pays attention to the emotional load that is present in the words. He's able to distinguish through time that when mom says, "You don't want your food today," there is a problem there. Mom is angry. And when mom says, "You don't want your food today, come on, it's so nice, do you want some?" Completely different. So he starts relating the emotion that is added to the words we are using. And this is very important. At the same time, he's paying attention to the body language that their parents and other members of the language are producing. Because do you want the glass? Yes, says mom. Yes, yes. Or no? No? So he starts relating the language to body movements. So when he starts speaking and he starts using the language, he concentrates, because now that he has been observing what his parents have been doing for all this time, they recognize that in order to ask for something, he needs to concentrate on the most meaningful word. So it's of course that he can't say, for example, "Mom, I'm thirsty, could you please bring me a glass of water?" That's impossible. But he will concentrate on water, water. And he knows that he will be given water. You see, so gradually he starts using also this special emotional tone that accompanies words and body language. So that's the way we internalize the complete aspects that are present together with the words. What happens when we learn a foreign language? When we are very young, because we can start at 6, 7, when we are children. Listening is forgotten. We start speaking it. And we forget that exposure brings a lot of information, and we forget what our babies do before they start speaking our mother tongue. That's why this redirection is always moving about, because this is what we need. If we pay attention to studies, 55% of what we say is devoted to body language. You see how strong, how powerful body language is. 38% to tone of voice, that is to say the emotional load of words, and only 7% to words. So this means that body language and tone of voice together are much more powerful than the words themselves. And this is indicated when I express different meanings, keeping the same word, but using different tone of voice and body language. Let me give you an example. Suppose that I say, who phoned you this morning? And the other person says, I'm going to represent what he says. And I said, Peter. So I'm glad that Peter phoned, right? Well, so my word is accompanied by my emotions. I'm happy because he phoned. Now the same question. And I say, Peter, again, he's so heavy. So there is another emotional load. I get angry because he's so heavy and he insists on phoning, right? So, but I'm using the same term, but by using a different body expression and tone of voice, I'm changing the meaning completely. And finally, the same question, and I say, Peter phoned. Oh my God, there is a problem here with Peter. But the constant, the word is constant, but I'm changing the meaning because of the paralinguistic information that is around the same word. That's why it is so important to know this information that is usually ignored. Well, listening is a multisensory experience. When you start realizing that listening is not just understanding words, it becomes a holistic experience. Why? Because when we listen, we do not listen just with our ears. We also listen with our eyes, because we are paying attention to the words, to the tone of voice using our ears, but also it is important to consider the tone of the body language that my interlocutor is using. And besides, what we need to add to listening is perception skills. Perception is the sensory experience of the world, and in this case, of listening. So all that information that is extra is very valuable and may help students to understand the language much better. That's why it should be included. The problem we are having at the moment when listening is considered in the classroom, especially when we deal with different activities to be tested, not to be taught, the main aspect of the activity is the product, the result. We test to check comprehension. We never speak about the process. Apparently, we are not interested in considering how students reach to the particular answers that they should give. So what is important is the process. I need to know how students understand some recorded information, and then I will pay attention to the result. But first, the process. That's why in the new tendency we have in education, it is crucial to consider how students learn in order to give them the necessary strategies. Otherwise, they won't be able to learn correctly. Well, the same happens with English. I need to know how the students are learning in order to organize what they need in order to become effective communicators, because the ultimate aim is to help them develop communicative competence, that is to say, the ability to understand and be understood. But in order to be able to become effective communicators, they need to know the type of strategies they need to use in order to be effective. Well, Richard Caldwell distinguishes between two types of speech models. By the way, Richard Caldwell is one of my favorite authors, and he has guided me in all the research I have been doing for years about listening. Well, he's a teacher, a researcher, and a writer. His book, The Phonology for Listening, he really places listening in the 21st century, taking into consideration the new status of English as an international tongue. Well, in his book, he also provides teachers with new ideas and strategies to help learners discover the realities of spoken language, spontaneous speech. Well, for example, in the careful model, the speech is shaped by the language. So in this type of model, we will find speakers who speak perfectly well, sounds are perfectly pronounced, there are no mistakes in grammar, and every word is fully pronounced. Imagine if now I start speaking like that to you because I want you to understand what I'm saying. How boring, how boring. Imagine a speech like that. So it's not natural at all. Because when we are having a normal conversation, there are pauses, there are hesitations, we restart because we organize the idea in another way. There are mistakes. Mistakes, sometimes I consider that they are serious. We are not supposed to commit mistakes. Well, we commit mistakes in our mother tongues. Why not in English? The problem is that with the type of methodology we are using at the moment, apparently teachers want to get or want to help students become perfect writers or perfect speakers. We do not need perfect speakers. What we need is effective communicators. That's the big difference. That's why students, as we are correcting them permanently, they don't want to participate. They are passive receivers of information. And when they are passive receivers, they do not have the chance to become active participants. And if they not participate actively in the classroom, in the classroom in which they are learning the language, they won't be able to speak it clearly, fluently, and intelligibly. So this is something that we need to change urgently. Well, in the spontaneous speech model, it's just the opposite. Here, the speech is governed by the speaker. Imagine a Chinese person using English as a means of communication. So, first of all, he will speak it with an accent, his own accent. He will speak Chinese English, right? For example, mine is Spanish accent. I've got a Spanish accent, but within Spanish it is Argentinian accent, and within Argentina, it is the type of English that is spoken in the River Plate area. You see, so there are slight modifications, but English is being modified constantly by neighboring factors, and that should be taken into account. That's why we can't speak of a perfect speaker, of a perfect listener today. The term that we need to use is effective, effective communicator. Well, this careful speech model normally appear in course books, especially with beginners. Of course, that the language should be graded, but it should be natural. So for younger students, what we may use is a conversation, for example, between two English little children. They are playing and they are having a conversation. So that kind of input is great for children who are trying to learn their language, as they're trying to learn English. So this is a type of spontaneous speech, and they will learn a lot because they will realize how the language is spoken naturally. Well, what does communication include? First of all, communication is a two-way process. And there are two main components, speaking and listening. And they are working together. They cannot be separated. They form a binomial, right? When we think of speaking, we think of listening. And when we are engaged in a communicative activity, I speak and then I listen. I speak and then I listen. I listen and I speak. And that's the way a conversation goes on, right? Well, and in this way, we are trying to understand what is being said, and then I try to make myself understood. This is communication. What is important in communication is that when we are trying to send a message, there is a constant negotiation. And for example, negotiation, of course, in higher levels, this information is not taught because the language is not practiced orally. We give more emphasis to the written form. So today that English is an international language, we need to reduce the amount of written activities and focus on oral work all the time, different type of activities in which speaking and listening are used permanently. And you will see how their ears will be sharpened and they will realize that they are improving, and this is great. Well, if we pay attention to our daily communication, we see that 45% is devoted to listening, 30% to speaking, and well, the rest to the other two abilities. We are listening and hearing all the time, but we are not speaking all the time. We speak when we have something to say. But in spite of devoting a lot of time to listening, experts say that we are not good with listeners. We are poor or ineffective listeners. Why? Because when we are listening, we tend to answer. We do not tend to understand, because when we are having a conversation, we are trying to analyze what he's saying. What he said. What does he mean by saying this to me? So the idea is to answer immediately without trying to understand too hard the intention of the speaker. It happens. It happens. That's why experts say that we need to improve our listening, of course, in our mother tongue especially, right? Well, the problem with listening is that it is a skill that is not taught in our mother tongue. We have never been taught listening at school. So it is together with the rest. In the case of listening, when learning a foreign or a second language, well, it is also ignored. But if we try to find information on the net, you will see that there aren't courses which have training on listening. All we have is everything related to speaking. But we see sometimes we are offered courses in which they say you will be able to speak like a native speaker, or will reduce your accent. And this is a complete lie. We will never speak like native speakers because we were not born in Britain. We speak English with an accent. And accent is part of our identity. It cannot be reduced. This is a lie. It cannot be reduced. What we can do is to improve our pronunciation. But accent is part of us. So what do we do when we communicate? Remember that normally we say we are helping our students to speak English. To speak English. And what about listening? Only to speak English? What about listening? Okay, again, the question, listening, where is listening? Oh, I can't find it in the class, so where is it? Well, so we need to change the term. We are helping our students to communicate in English. That's different. When I speak of communication, I'm considering both speaking and listening, especially today, because English is changing every single day, because it is exposed to the influence of neighboring languages. Well, what are the components of communication? We have verbal language, that is to say, the words that we use. But those words that we produce are usually accompanied by non-verbal language. And I have said that this non-verbal language is usually much more powerful than the words themselves. Just a look may give a lot of meaning. Well, non-verbal language includes paralinguistic information, that is to say, prosody, intonation, and rhythm, and the tone of voice. Both of them are crucial in communication, and they are totally ignored. They do not exist in the classroom. In the case, when we use drama, drama works with emotions, and there are activities in which students have to relate words and emotions. And in this way, when they are engaged in a communicative activity, they are able to use their emotions freely because they know the how. Besides this paralinguistic information, we have unspoken communication, body language. I use facial expressions and body movements to convey meaning. Normally, when we are having a conversation, we do not speak like a robot like this without moving anything. No, we use our expressions because our emotions are always present in everything we do. So speaking and listening are not an exception. They are there, and they should be taken into account in order to be successful listeners. When we are listening to our interlocutors, we pay attention to three different aspects of the information that they are giving us. First of all, I pay attention to the sequences of sounds that are present. These sequences of sounds are words. Once I realize that those sequences create words, I recognize the meaning of those words. Then they are accompanied by intonation and rhythm, and emotions are present. So this is the second process that is performed simultaneously. I recognize words, I recognize the intonation and rhythm of the words, I recognize the emotional load, and also I pay attention, because I'm looking at my interlocutor, the type of body language that he's using. So these three processes are performed simultaneously. And normally, when we think of listening, we concentrate on the words themselves. And that's the end of the story. And you see that there is a lot of information that is meaningful at the same time. Well, what are the current issues in teaching oral communication? Well, first of all, the role of pronunciation teaching. Pronunciation is left to the process of osmosis. And there is a very important problem we are having at the moment, that normally when pronunciation is present, we tend to correct individual words. And speech does not occur in individual words. Speech occurs in connected speech, right? Speech is connected. Speech is a sequence of sounds that have meaning, because we need the code. Imagine if I now start speaking in German. Supposing that nobody is able to speak German here, what I'm saying would be a stream of noise, because we cannot apply a meaning to what I'm saying. Well, in the case of a pronunciation, teachers tend to correct the mistakes immediately after they have committed. And it is a mistake to correct mistakes in this way. It is a play on words, but it is something that cannot be avoided sometimes. So we need to control ourselves, and we should let our students finish what they are saying. I'm going to give you an example. Suppose that my teacher asked me to tell her what I did yesterday. So I say, well, yesterday I went on a picnic, and I eat some sandwiches. But no, not eat. So the teacher immediately, no, not eat. The past of eat is ate. Come on, say with me, eat, ate. And this is in the list of irregular verbs. So I think that you will have to revise that, okay? Well, go on. Go on. No, I can't. Because all the ideas that I had organized before starting vanished. That's why students prefer not to speak, because they know that they will be interrupted. So we need to control ourselves. Normally, students at lower levels give a description that is very short, so we can remember the mistakes that have been committed, and they should be treated with the whole class. Remember that learning is a social act. We are not used to working cooperatively, and this is essential, especially today with these active methodologies that are being implemented. We need to work work on mistakes together. All the students normally share the same types of mistakes. So it is important that they reflect on the type of mistakes they're having. And in this way, they can share, for example, strategies, styles of learning, etc. So when they learn together, they improve faster. Well, another issue is accuracy and fluency. Of course, both of them are important goals in learning, but the question is, how do we prioritize phonologically, grammatically correct language and clear speech? What do we prefer? Accuracy or fluency? Well, we should have a balance. Of course, that when learning a language, students need to know how the system works. And now, at the moment, with this present status of English, the students need to know how the language works, because mistakes will be present with speakers whose mother tongue is not English. But if they know how the language works, they will be able to repair the mistakes mentally. Suppose that now I say, would you like a piece of cake? No, thank you. I don't want nothing. I say, I don't want nothing. Have you understood? Yes, you have. But you immediately have detected that I have made a mistake in grammar. But comprehension has taken place. So if I say, for example, do you like my new sweater? And I'm showing this to you. Sweater. Yes, I love your sweater. You may say, so as to reinforce the meaning of the word. But has understanding taken place? Yes, there has been a mistake in a sound. So it is a different way of facing the type of English we are having at the moment. And this is reality. This is authenticity. This is what is happening when we are listening and we are trying to understand real life language, real life English. Well, another important issue is affective factors. Learning a foreign language is not easy, because children and adolescents and adults, students at all levels, are afraid of committing mistakes. And besides, they need to express in a language they do not have a good command of. So a special atmosphere should be created. We cannot start a class without an atmosphere that is inviting and welcoming, that is inviting students to start speaking, to become engaged, to generate intrinsic motivation. And that is my responsibility. That's why I normally devote some minutes before starting with some drama activities in order to keep their brains alert, some physical exercises or some relaxing activities in which they feel better for the process of learning. So we cannot start a class saying, okay, good morning, sit down and pay attention. And that was the way I was told when I was young, but it's still present today because we have crowded classes and sometimes it becomes rather difficult to deal with this type of groups. But anyway, when you start implementing emotions in the classroom, this means that they are floating in the air. I think that this invitation can become bigger class after class. And we will feel better to start our teaching because it's not only learning that should be ready to be started. Teaching should also be ready to be started. Well, another important issue is the interaction factor. As I said before, the best way of assessing if students are able to use the language correctly is through interactions. Interactions. And when they are interacting, they need to, as I said before, negotiate meanings. And in what way do we negotiate meanings? Well, in the same way we do when we are using our mother tongue. What do we do when we don't understand? We ask for repetition. We ask for further explanation, paraphrasing, reformulations. All these conversation devices are present when we are speaking, but they are not taught, and they are crucial. Otherwise, the students, that's why they say they are not able to keep a conversation going, because they don't know what to say. And this problem is also present at higher levels. For example, students at teacher training college, there is a lot of academic information, and speaking is also related to the contents they are dealing with. And what about spontaneous speaking? Because when they become teachers, they will have to teach English as an international language, right? So for this reason, drama is so important also at teacher training colleges, where they have the opportunity to create a special atmosphere in which a debate, the performance of a short play, any activity in which speaking and listening are present are welcome. And in this way, they feel more confident because they feel that they are able to keep a conversation going without thinking in the content they have learned. So the content is okay. It is part of the knowledge I need to know in order to become a teacher. But I also need this type of speaking and listening activities in order to improve my ability to speak fluently and intelligibly. What makes speaking and listening difficult? Well, first of all, the emphasis on writing. Remember that we have been talking about this. And why this is a real problem? Because in this way, children do not learn the language through their ears. They learn it through their eyes because they are used to writing. That's why they have this choppy way of speaking. Why? Because words are separated and they speak in the same way. Normally, students tend to say, yesterday I went to the supermarket. No, yesterday I went to the supermarket and I bought a packet of flour. Very good, no grammar mistakes. But there is no fluency at all because that choppy way of speaking should disappear if they are constantly having exposure to the language, because children learn the language very easily. What they don't have is the set of elements which are appropriate to facilitate that type of learning. So we are responsible for that. So when students have exposure, they start opening their ears, they sharpen their ears, and in this way they are able to take that information that they receive and that becomes theirs. And another problem with writing that affects speaking and listening is that normally we use writing to fix grammar or to fix vocabulary, but we also insist on complete answers, even when they are practicing speaking, of course, in a natural way, because we have said that if I ask questions to my students, this is not communication. But we'll say, do you like coffee? No, 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 come on. How do we say this? No, I don't. I like tea. Do we answer like that in a normal conversation? What we need to do is to give them the options and to tell them what is the most usual form in real life situations. Because when students, with our students who are learning the language, meet students who are English, who are visiting, suppose the institution, and they speak English, they are surprised at the way our students are speaking the language, because the way they do it is completely natural. So, for example, if I say, you ask me, why didn't you come to class yesterday? I was ill. Well, you know that my facial expression is I'm lying, really. But I may say, ill, or ill. And do you understand what happened to me yesterday? Yes, because I said ill. The word ill is enough. But in class, we are supposed to give the complete idea. Because I was ill, because I insist as a teacher. Whenever the question is with why, what is the word we use? Because. So they may use because, but if it is forgotten and understanding takes place, that's the end of the story. So we need to change the way we are teaching the language and helping them to use the language in a flexible way. Otherwise, it is too structured because they need to remember many things. And remember that when they are using the language, their brains are working very hard because they are trying to find the correct grammatical structure, and then the words they have to use. So it's too much for them. So if we facilitate with the appropriate strategies, well, they will be able to speak the language more comfortably. Well, simplifications. When we are using the language, and remember that normally we need to speak about connected speech, because the students, when they are using the language, they are connecting ideas, and words in connected speech are linked together. Well, there are different types of reductions. They are phonologic, they are phonetic, they are morphological, they are syntactic, and they are pragmatic. For example, there are phonetic processes which are used in order to economize effort. For example, when a plosive is dropped because it is medial between two others. So it is easier for me to drop it. For example, I listened to you the other day. I listened to you, and the final suffix for to indicate past tense is not present, but understanding has taken place. In the case of morphological, a contraction, aunt, syntactical ellipses, mom, phone, for example. We do not give the whole idea, but it is understood. And pragmatics is related to the speaker's meaning. For example, you ask me, can you help me? And I say, busy. What is the answer? I can't. So the answer is no. Well, this information, this way of using the language is very important, because after all the grammar and after all the vocabulary they have learned, they should be able to use it correctly in a normal conversation. So how do we relate this element in order to be an effective communicator? Well, they need strategies. Something very important that they need to know is that we do not speak in individual words. We speak in chunks. That's why we should not allow this choppy way of speaking, because when their peers are listening to him, they are not able to understand what is being said, because when we listen to a person speaking like that, we cannot grasp the meaning because everything is alike. And besides, if mistakes in pronunciation are present, so the situation becomes worse. So students need to know that we listen and we speak in chunks in order to understand and be understood better. This means that our speech is divided into sections, and each section contains 1 or 2 important words, and the rest are forgotten. When they get this information, they are saving a lot of time, because in the type of listening activities that we are having at the moment, they find it, as I said before, they find this type of activities very difficult because they don't know the strategies they have to use. So they tend to pay attention to every single word. And this is a terrible mistake because they cannot grasp the main meaning of what is being said. So they fail. But if we tell them that we speak in chunks and every chunk contains information that is highlighted, and some words are more important than others, well, they will concentrate on those words which are important, and they will forget the rest. And when they forget the rest, they will connect those important words they have detected, and meaning takes place, and they are able to complete the activity or give the correct answer or whatever it is there. Well, remember that this type of activity concentrates just on comprehension. As John Field says, John Field is an author. He has also written books on listening, and they are really very interesting. He says that there is a pattern in this type of listening activities we are using at the moment. They are listen, answer, and check. That's the end of the story. And nothing is said about the process. And I think that there is a need to know what is happening. And that's why we need to ask them. And we start asking them, how do you know that this is the answer? What did you do in order to reach to this particular information? And you will see the strategies that they are trying to use, because we have never taught them any. That would be great. Well, now rhythm and intonation. This is another problem we're having at the moment too, because they are not taught either. And we are having a serious problem because rhythm and intonation are taught at teacher training colleges. But there is a lot of theoretical information about them, and normally the emphasis is on intonation. And intonation and rhythm are related; they cannot be separated. But normally, I don't know why, the emphasis is on intonation. But that theoretical information that is given is not applied in real life situations, so that the students do not have the chance to see how intonation really works in an ordinary conversation. So when they graduate and they become teachers and they start having their own groups of students, intonation is not present. So they go back to the traditional method in which this is not taken into account. And today, with English as a global language, rhythm and intonation have become very important elements to understanding and being understood. They cannot be ignored. Why? Because they are meaning processors. And it is not what we say, but how we say it. So there is a complete change of focus. And they are meaning processors because rhythm is related to stress. And stress belongs to the language. Stress is what we find in the dictionary. For example, extraordinary is stressed on throw and there is no other possibility. But when we speak of intonation, intonation is related to prominence and to accent. Accent belongs to the speaker because according to the meaning I want to convey to you, I'm going to change the accent or the prominence to convey different meanings. For example, if I say, you tell me, well, I'm going to the party, and I say, I want to go too. So I'm highlighting I, because probably you thought that I would stay home. No, I want to go. Or, depending on the context, I may say, I want to go. Or in a different context, I want to go. So the same answer as in the previous example I gave you before, you see. Well, that's why intonation is so important, because by shifting the prominence of the words, I'm changing the meaning. For this reason, it is important to know in what way the meaning of messages can change according to the way we use these components that have been ignored for ages because we are teaching the language in a traditional way. And another important factor we should take into account is the speech rate, that is to say, tempo, the speed at which we speak. Well, what is the ideal speed? Well, it should be an acceptable one. When we speak too quickly, we tend to distort sounds because we tend to swallow words or to swallow sounds, swallow syllables. And of course, we won't be clear and we won't be understood. But when we speak very carefully, we tend to over-articulate the sounds and we speak like that, and our modulation is not nice at all. So you cannot pay attention to a person who is speaking like that. So a normal speed is advisable in this case, so as to be understood. How can students improve listening skills? Well, first of all, they need to know that listening, as I said before, is not just understanding. Sorry, but I'm having energy problems. Okay. It's not just listening to words, it's much more than that. Traditionally, listening has been considered a passive activity, right? Passive activity. But today we know that it is as active as speaking, and it is a multi-sided interpretative process. And remember that we have mentioned that when we are engaged in listening, there are three main processes that are present, and they are performed simultaneously. This means that the brain is working very hard when we are listening to another person. Then listening, as I said before, is a foundational skill, and it is key in communication. Why? Because it is the skill of understanding spoken language. Isn't it amazing? The skill of understanding spoken language. So it is impossible not to be part of the teaching and of the learning. Another important aspect of this importance of listening is that listening is at the heart of learning every language. Learning a language implies first listening to it. That's why exposure is so important. Listening is used as oral input, and remember that oral input is very important because students take information from that exposure. So first exposure, then listening. When the student recognizes or learns that listening is an active process, that it is a crucial skill in communication, he's able to achieve intelligibility, that is to say, the ability to produce clear sequences of sounds, comprehensibility, the ability to understand what is being said, and interpretability, the ability to recognize the purpose of the speaker, because that is also very important. When we are having active listening, we also grasp the intention of the speaker. That's why we need to use our perception skills. This means that listening becomes a holistic experience. And I love when my students feel that listening is a holistic experience, because they are feeling that they are using their brains, they are using their emotions, and they are using their bodies. Isn't it great? Well, now let's see what can we do in order to improve the situation of listening and try to avoid considering it as the Cinderella skill in language learning. Well, how should oral communication be taught and learned? Well, in order to learn the language, first of all, how do we learn the language? First of all, by listening and then speaking. Speaking and listening, you remember that they work together. And so we need strategies for both. But in the case of listening, we should concentrate on the process. Remember, we need to use strategies that will help the students understand the process of listening. And then he will be able to concentrate on the outcomes, on the results of listening, right? That is understanding. In order to understand the process, there are two different types of strategies that we use, bottom-up and top-down. And metaphorically speaking, this is the difference between, for example, looking at the trees, the individual trees in a forest, and paying attention to the specific characteristics of each tree, that is to say, this processing bottom-up, and looking at the forest, getting an overview. So this is a top-down processing. When we use bottom-up strategies, we focus on the details. That is, it is listening for specific details. And it is a macro view because it is concerned with bits of language, and it requires detailed recognition of the input. It is text-based because it is concerned with the language that is present in the message, and it goes from language to meaning. And the listener's phonological, lexical, and grammatical competence form the basis for this type of processing. The skills that are used are at sentence level, because remember that this type of processing is concerned with bits of language. And the skills are micro skills, because it is concerned with the elements of the language. On the other hand, we have top-down processing, which focuses on the general meaning. The listener gets the gist in order to understand what is being said. It is a macro view because it pays attention to larger elements present in the spoken language. And it is listener-based. Why? Because the listener uses his background knowledge. And in this case, there are different forms. He may use his prior knowledge, contextual knowledge, or the knowledge that is shared with his interlocutor. I'm going to give you an example. Suppose that I meet a friend in the street and he starts telling me about a party he had yesterday. When he starts telling me about the party, I start imagining what happens when we go to a party. So, well, we normally eat, we meet friends, we dance, we chat. So, of the two processes, the one that becomes dominant is the top-down strategies that I'm using to understand what is being said. And then he goes on speaking, and he said, you know, next Sunday, there is another party, and I would like you to go. Well, and I say, well, but I don't know where your friend lives. Oh, don't worry, I will give you the directions. So he starts giving me directions to go to his friend's house. So now, bottom-up processing will become dominant because I will have to pay attention to details, because I will have to pay attention to the street where this friend lives, the number of the house, probably the bus number, in order to get to his house, etc. So normally, when we are listening, we use both processes, and sometimes, depending on the context, one may become more important than the other. This is what we normally do when we are listening any message. And the students need to know what they are doing when they are listening, because otherwise they listen and just listen without considering what is going on while they are doing that. And this information is really crucial. Now, let's see the strategies that we can use in order to improve this type of listening. In the case of bottom-up strategies, the first thing that we need to do is, from the very beginning, with starters, the distinction between content and structure words to convey meaning. When I give courses on communication, and when we finish the course, normally students tell me, why is this information not given before? Who knows? That's why this is an invitation for you to start changing the way you are treating listening, poor listening. She's so nice and so useful in our communication. Well, it is important to know this difference. A content word conveys meaning, and a structure word is just for linking the important words, the lexical words, the ones that are really important. But sometimes, depending on the content, on the context, a structure word may become important. When I say, for example, I want to go, normally I never say, I went to school this morning. I need a particular context to highlight the pronoun, because a pronoun is a structure word. So it is never stressed, it is never accented unless the context requires it, right? But normally, when we are listening, we concentrate on those words which carry meaning, and those which are being used to connect the main words are forgotten. When we give the students this invitation, okay, let's concentrate on words which are important. In this message, which words are important? I'm going to give an example. I say, there were some students in the classroom. Which words are important there? Mind you, I have said there were some students in the classroom. 7 words. Of these 7 words, how many are important? Only 2. Students and classroom, you see. So when we teach students to concentrate on the information that is important, that is, on the content words, they save time and they can understand much better because they forget the rest. At the moment, when they are giving a listening activity, they are paying attention to every single word. So it's very complicated to understand what they are listening. So this is important. That's why, as I said before, when children start learning the language, this information should be given. Normally, we tend to emphasize the question. It is wrong to say, what is your name? Probably they cannot understand properly. What is your name? No, it's not what is your name, because otherwise they will repeat, because they imitate what the teacher says very easily. So what's your name? What's your name? Or what is your name? So you may tell them, which words are important there? They immediately detect that it is what and name. So repeat after me. What is your name? What a name? What a name? And what is in the middle is not important because it's connecting the main idea. And the answer is just Pat. No, my name is Pat. We never answer like that. We never. In everyday conversation, we never say, my name is Pat. So this is to check grammar. If I say Pat, you understand perfectly well, because that word corresponds to the Pat I'm saying. End of the story. Okay, well, recognizing essential and superficial features in connected speech. This is also very important because there are important features that are present in speech that the students need them for reception, not for production. For example, where the conjunction and is reduced to a single nasal, for example, bread and butter, Captain Sosa, the conjunction and has been reduced. But when this appears in a dialogue, well, you explain that to your students, and you know that they have good memory, they retain the information, and when they find this expression somewhere else with another sequence, for example, they get it immediately. This happens naturally. The thing is that they need to know. Well, what are the essential features? They need to know, for example, the phonological distinction. They need to know the system of sounds in order to be able to pronounce correctly. When they pronounce word correctly, this means that they gradually will develop intelligibility. Otherwise, it will be difficult to understand what they are saying. What else is essential? Well, it is essential to consider which words are important in the message and which words are highlighted. According to the content words that are present in the message, the speaker will select one or two in order to convey meaning. The rest is not taken into account. The rest is not taken into account because they are linking words or because they are part of the conversation. Suppose that we have a conversation and we start talking about my mother. So I start talking about my mother, and once I mention her, it is part of the conversation. So there is no need to refer to her again, because every time I mention that she, referring to her, you will know that it is my mother. So that is predictable information. If I say that yesterday I visited my friend, that action is predictable because it has already been mentioned. So it is information that is already known. So if that information is repeated in communication, we are not going to pay attention to that. What the students need to know is to pay attention to bits of information that are new in order to understand what is being said. So that's the way listening works. And what is superficial? Well, weak forms are superficial. Weak forms are present in those words which are used for linking. So we have weak forms, and what else? And phonetic processes. We use, remember, I have said, this phonetic process in order to economize effort, but they are not supposed to be used by students. So the students, if they find the sequence, I talked to you the other day. I didn't say I talked to you the other day. That is forced. Nobody speaks like that. When I say I talked to you yesterday, and the plosive indicating the past tense is dropped, is that's perfectly understood. So phonetic processes and weak forms are not essential. The essential are the ones that are related to meaning. Identifying reduced forms of words and phrases. Well, for example, when we use contractions, the case of the conjunction and other linking words, which are normally weakened because they are not important. As I said before, they are the glue that is present in order to connect the most important words in the message. And then once the students become more confident with this type of strategies that are used in listening, they start recognizing sound sequences, thought groups, that is to say chunking. They start using chunking. When they start using chunking, they realize how easy it is to communicate, because every chunk contains only one or two words. The rest is forgotten. So imagine the time they are saving by listening in this way. They recognize rhythm patterns because now they can distinguish which words are stressed and which are not. So they are becoming to understand how listening works perfectly well. And of course, also intonation contours. Why? Because they are able to detect when a word is highlighted by the speaker to convey special meaning. When I say, I want to go, oh, sorry, I forgot to invite you. That would be the answer to my, I want to go. You see? So meaning takes place more easily when we give this type of strategies. As regards top-down strategies, we can use them, for example, to get the main ideas. And this is what is done in the type of listening activities we are giving at the moment. The thing is that students do not know anything about the processes I have just mentioned before. Selecting relevant information, well, these are the strategies that we use in the type of listening activities we are using at the moment. So what we need to add is all the others that are missing and are extremely important. Well, and something that should be highlighted is that top-down processing also includes the interpretation of non-verbal cues that they have been ignored for ages, and we have said how important they are. So a special activity that we can give to our students, well, we can have a performance of a short play, and there the students can detect the type of nonverbal cues that are used, and they have to explain the meaning of these nonverbal behaviors. In this way, they realize how important body language is. Well, this means that when we are involved in the listening practice, we are going to use these two processes. They are crucial, and students need to know what they are doing. This is essential. Of course, that these two processes will take place in connected speech, never in individual words. Remember that we do not speak like that. We speak in chunks. We speak in groups of words. And when we focus on connected speech, what are the main pieces of information that should be taken into account? Well, the difference between content and structure words from the very beginning. When students start learning the language, this is one of the first pieces of information that should be present when dealing with a communication activity. Then highlighting. Why this word has been highlighted by the speaker? What does he mean, connected with what was said before? That's the way of analyzing listening, because the way we are checking listening now has nothing to do with the process, as I said before. And I insist on this because the students work differently when they analyze the listening they have had. Then chunking. Chunking is very important because we have said that they save time. They divide the sequence into chunks, and they are able to detect the important words. And also crucial is to consider the meaning behind the words. The meaning behind the words refers to the paralinguistic and nonverbal information present in speech. So whenever we consider any listening activity, we should take into account the goals. And they are usually called ETiP because each letter represents an aim. First of all, they should be technique-oriented. This means that the activity should provide students with strategies and techniques that will help them in the classroom and outside the classroom. That is to say, suppose that they meet a person in the street who is asking for directions. Well, he will have to be able to use what they have learned in the classroom. Then it should be authentic. That is to say, the activities should be realistic and challenging, purposeful. There is an aim always in the activity we are doing. And they should be engaging. For this reason, we need to know the interest of our students when we select dialogue. Sometimes it may be interesting for us, but they may be boring. That's why we need to ask students the type of activities they would like to have in order to keep them engaged. And you know that intrinsic motivation is very important in the class, because otherwise it is very difficult to involve students in the activities. Well, all these activities that we can do with all this toolbox full of strategies that will help our students improve their listening skills greatly, are for learning, not for testing. We are going to do some activities in which we'll see that they are just for learning. We are not testing anything. In the future, when they become confident with the process of listening, we may start checking their comprehension. But now we need to know about their process, and they need to analyze. That's why metacognition is so important. Metacognition is one of the most important components of 21st century education, and it is not as present as it should be. And this is a terrible mistake, because the students need to reflect on their own learning, and we need to reflect on our own teaching. So metacognition should be part of our daily classes. And we need to devote a special section of our classes, if it is necessary, in order to make them think about the strategies they are using, because they shouldn't be applied mechanically. On the contrary, they need to know what they are doing, because in this way, if some strategies are not working, they may detect their weaknesses and their strengths, and in this way, they will be able to improve their own learning. Our ultimate aim is to help them become autonomous. So when they reflect on their own learning, they will be able to recognize the gaps they are having in the learning and working together. Remember that this metacognition should be done collectively in the classroom, where everybody should be given a voice. And in this way, they will be able to improve their learning. Remember that learning is something social, and all the problems that students maybe have in the process of learning should be discussed all together. And metacognitive strategies are extremely important to help them reflect on the way they are learning at school. Well, and we come to the most interesting part of the class. We come to the active practice, and this is very important because it is the part of the class in which the students become active participants, right? They have the chance to speak. They have the chance to know or to assess their own English. And if something is not clear enough, they reflect on their own learning, as I said before. Well, this first activity, listened out loud, the main aim is to distinguish between content and structure words. And this is very important because this is the first piece of information they need to know. You can select any dialogue. This depends on the age of the students, and they will listen to it 3 times. Each of them will have a copy. In the first listening, they pay attention to the structure and the content words that can be used. And then, of course, what you can do is to revise before starting the activity. You can revise the difference between them, and when they have the first listening, they will try to recognize them in the dialogue. In the second listening, the teacher tells them to underline those words which are highlighted, which are stressed, which are important. And in the third listening, they check their choices. Then you provide the right version. This dialogue contains 62 words, and only 26 are important. The rest should be forgotten. So when we teach students these strategies, they concentrate on those words which are important. Why? Because they will listen that the speaker is saying something like, how are you doing today? No, how are you doing today? No, how are you doing today? So how is higher. How are you doing today? You see, so those words which are stressed are higher than the rest. So they sharpen their ears, and now they know that those which are higher are the important ones. And comprehension takes place more easily and faster. Well, the second activity is squabbles. In this case, the aim is to highlight which words are important in the message according to the question. For example, the answer, you might have seen that the answer is, you never help me. I'm not going to give you any intonation or any prominence. You never help me is repeated 3 times. But there are different questions. So the highlighting will be different. For example, why are you angry? You never help me. So help me, help is higher. You see? People always help you. You never help me. You see? So intonation, body language, and emotions are so important. Imagine if I'm here to you, well, yes, what I'm going to explain here is important, so pay attention, because if you don't pay attention, you will never know anything, you know? So please, come on, don't do anything else. Direct your eyes to me. Oh, imagine delivering a class like that. It's boring. So when you are a good example in which you are showing your emotions, you are showing your body language, so this helps listening to be improved. Well, let us see. I always help people. You never help me, right? Now, let's do number 2. Nobody was listening to me. Nobody was listening to me. So the answer is, I was listening. You see, I'm highlighting I because the other person says, nobody was listening to me. The second, what were you doing? I was listening. Why weren't you listening? I was listening. I'm changing the highlighting according to the question of my interlocutor. So it is much more interesting to learn communication in this way. Well, then you can do the rest at home. Okay, another important thing is, remember, chunking. Students need to know that we divide the sequence into chunks in order to improve understanding. You prepare a sequence of sentences which are divided, the boundaries between the words are marked, are present. And then you say, okay, remember the difference between content and structure words. Which words are important here? So they underline. In the first sequence, for example, is leaving. Take up, a post, and Glasgow. And then August. The other words are used just for linking. So she's leaving to take up a post in Glasgow in August. So you see that the rhythm is indicating what is higher. When everything is higher, the students already know that this is important, and they will get the meaning immediately. Then you provide another set in which no boundaries are present. So you tell the students to do the same, but in this second activity, what they can do is 2 different types of activities. First, mark the boundaries, and then to highlight or to underline the words that are important. In this way, gradually, with this type of activities, they become familiar with this highlighting that is so important in listening. Well, this activity is great and it can be used for all ages. We have 3 different activities that are performed at the same time. Say it, see it, and do it. The teacher prepares a set of challenges, they are directives, and each student in turn chooses one. And the teacher says, okay, I'm going to read the challenges for you, so you will repeat after me. This type of activity is used to strengthen listening and also executive functioning skills. Well, children love this type of activity. Okay, so the teacher says, skip a row, repeat, skip a row, read a book, read a book. All right, can you repeat them? So the students repeat the 4. So this is the first say it, and then see it. So the second activity is, can you visualize the challenge? And so the child says, yes, a girl is skipping in the playground. Great, okay. And then, can you do it and give a context of situation? So they are using the language. Yes, well, I'm at home, I'm with my best friend, we are in the garden, and we are skipping a rope. Good, okay, it is like that. So these 3 activities together help their listening and their executive functioning skills. Okay, well, another important activity is body speaks or acting out story. In this case, we are using TPR. TPR is typical physical response activities in which the students respond physically to a verbal stimulus. In this case, the teacher tells the students a tale they already know. And this is the instruction, okay? You are going to listen to this story, and when I highlight a word, you will represent it with your bodies, all right? So it is like this. Once upon a time, there was an elephant. The elephant was very sad. Suddenly, a bird appeared, and then a lion, and then a rabbit, and all of them hugged the elephant. So this is a way of understanding. They are using the language to interpret the story. Isn't it nice? Well, finally, we get to the action zone. The action zone is also a TPR activity in which the students respond physically. And these type of activities are very energetic because students love music, they love songs, but students at all ages, because adults like this type of activities too, they like playing. And when they offer games in the classroom, at first they may be reluctant, but they know that you are this type of teacher who is fond of playing and of dramatizing in the classroom. They enjoy the class very much because they feel that they are learning and that they are in a comfort atmosphere. Well, Mariela, I don't know what time it is, but can we sing this song together, or let's go directly to the reflection time? You tell me, please, because I don't know what time it is.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can continue.
Yes?
I know it's the last activity. It's okay. Yeah.
I can. Okay. Well, so for the whole audience, let's get energetic. And this is an activity you can give to your students, and they are enjoying a song while they are responding physically. This type of activity may be used to, for example, revise vocabulary, but you love it. I hope that you will love it too. Well, I would like to to share the screen, if you let me, so as to start listening to the song. And we come to an end practically. Can I share the screen, please?
Yes, you can, Patricia.
But let me, please. Ah, yes, on top. I was waiting. I was looking at another part of the screen. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Try
wait
to
a
share
minute.
again, Patricia.
Sorry, what did you say?
Try to share again.
Here it is. Right. Okay, so what we are going to do, I cannot see you, but I want you. You, Mariela, will tell me if the audience is following the song. So the idea is, well, I want you to, Mariela, to help me dance with me. So we are going to get energetic. Let's have this dance and follow the teacher that is showing us the different movements, okay? Let's start.
And can you touch your toe?
Wait, it should start.
Hello everybody and welcome to Movement Time with Debbie Doo. All right, it's time to get your dancing shoes on because we're going to do the twist. Can you shake your hands up high? And can you touch your nose? Can you shake your hands down low? And can you touch your toes? Can you jump forward, forward? Can you jump back, back? And can you spin like this? Can you jump left? Can you jump right? And can you do the twist? Can you shake your hands up high? And can you touch your nose?
What happened? I don't know what happened.
I don't know, but it was really fun.
Okay, well, let's stop it here. Well, that's the way we have to ignite our children's brains, not only children, adolescents, and adults, because they really love it. Okay, well, some concluding thoughts, and we start the reflection time. Listening is actively a body, heart, and mind workout. This means that when we are listening, we are using our whole bodies. And whole body listening means that our eyes are listening. Our eyes are looking. Our ears are listening. Our mouths are quiet. Our brains are thinking very hard what our interlocutors are saying. And our hearts are interpreting our emotions. When we feel that listening is like that, we really think that listening is an adventure. That's why I invite all teachers who have been together with me to consider listening as a superpower. It is a superpower because it provides students with super strategies that will help them become effective communicators. Remember, we do not want perfect speakers or perfect writers. What we need is effective communicators. And I think that these strategies are really what they really need in order to become what they really want, to be able to communicate effectively. Okay, so let's move to your questions. And I want to know the way you are working in the classroom, or any question you may feel may be interested to be discussed here today together. Okay?
Yeah, Patricia. Thank you so much, dear Patricia, for this outstanding presentation. Yeah, and now we have already a few questions. We already have a few questions. Please, Mr. Kevin Laura, can you read the questions for Miss
Yes. Oh,
Arbona?
yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, dear Miss Patricia, for a wonderful workshop for us. Yeah, but first, before we start with some questions that we have from the audience, many people are so happy to have you today. We have greetings from Guatemala, from Miss Karen Monge. We have greetings from Colombia, from Miss Sulay Castaño. Of course, we have some greetings right here from Peru, especially from Brian, from Miss Jalini. We're so happy to have you today.
Well, thank
Well,
you.
yeah. Well, we have a question. The first question we have from Miss Elizabeth Hulka Leon says, when are students involved in real activities, they can communicate in the language? There are some statements, right? But one of the most important questions that says right here says, can we correct mistakes from the students at the moment that they are speaking or at the end?
At the end, we were talking about this because one of the reasons they do not want to participate is because they are corrected immediately after they say something. And when they organize their ideas in order to finish what they have prepared and they abruptly are interrupted, the flow of speech is no longer present. All the ideas that he had organized before speaking, they disappear. So the idea is that at the end of, normally, if it is a summary, well, you may write down the mistake, the most important mistake, and they should be treated with the whole class. I have said that mistakes are common. Many students have the same type of mistakes. So the best way of correcting and repairing mistakes is working together.
Yes, thank you so much. We're in a real context here in Peru. Most of teachers are working with WhatsApp as a platform to work with the students. So most teachers are asking if, can you give us some strategies or tips for working or communication on WhatsApp?
Well, it's difficult to work online. It's difficult, but not impossible. We are restricted because we are separated by a screen. So we cannot create this special atmosphere that is normally present in a physical classroom. But anyway, we should try hard. The problem is that when we are having online classes on the other side of the screen, we don't know if our students are really paying attention because it's very difficult to get their attention. So we don't know if they are even learning. Sometimes they mute themselves because they do not want to participate because the activity that we have prepared for that particular class does not attract their attention. So it's difficult to work when we are separated. But anyway, we need to find a way to catch their attention and to motivate them as much as possible. I know that is not easy, especially with children. Children tend to start thinking about something else very easily because they bring their pets or they bring the dress they have bought the previous day. So concentration is difficult in general. Well, and grown-ups or adolescents are not willing to learn in this way. I think that they are very tired because in my case in Argentina, last year there were no classes at all. So everything was online. And this year we started, but now we are having serious problems. So classes are no longer physical. And well, the same is happening around the world. The students are already having emotional problems. So it is very difficult to get them concentrated in the classroom. So we are trying hard, I know, but it's difficult. So think when we go back to school and we are in our physical classroom, we will do marvelous things. But now we are restricted.
Yes, that's true. Thank you so much. I got amazing ideas from you. That one of them is motivation is so important for us to catch students' attention, to motivate them to that material, maybe just to use it. Authentic material, of course, is really nice. So we don't have to think that our students are not going to be able to get it. Yeah, I think they can. And of course, different kind of strategies to teach or practice pronunciation, especially maybe to practice some games with phonemes, just they can be engaged to practice correctly. This is my final question exactly about, well, for Ms. Gles Nunez says, what do you think about to use the role plays like a strategy for practice the pronunciation in class?
Oh, well, I teach drama, so
Yeah.
well, I love drama because when I started using it many years ago, I studied with students at teacher training colleges, so it was so great, all the help that it provided to my students in order to become better communicators, that if you want to use role play simulations, debates, that's the best way of assessing if they are using the language correctly. And while they are doing this activity, because they need to select what strategies may be used. Well, after the class, remember that metacognition is crucial. We need to make our students reflect. They should reflect on their learning. When they reflect on their learning, they start discovering what is weak and what is not weak. And in this way, they will improve. So if you have the opportunity to give them different types of activities in which they are involved, interaction, any type of interaction is welcome, because that's the way of learning communication. And when I say communication, I'm talking about listening and speaking.
Mm-hmm. That is. Thank you so much. Just before we finish, I got a question. Well, the questions from Ms. Rosemary literally says, what strategy should I use when my student have a disability? But my question will be much better for you is, do you have some experience working with some students with some kind of disabilities? Have you ever?
No, I have never worked with students with special needs, but I have seen colleagues working with drama. Again, drama is the best tool for students with special needs, because they can discover their potential. So we are responsible first to discover their potential. And once we know what they are able to do, we start using specific drama techniques to help them be able to learn the language using that potential. Because in spite of the disability the students may have, they always have some sort of potential. Well, we should have the ability to discover that ability and use it in the classroom so that they will be able to learn. And they feel so happy when they can do things in the classroom together with the other students, because we know we have diversity classes, so we need to pay attention to the different potentials they have. And those students who have needs which are more important than others, and in spite of that, they are able to work with all the students together. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ms. Patricia. Amazing answers. I really like it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Mariela, can we continue?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Patricia. Por favor, nos acompañas, querida Patricia, unos minutos más. Quisiéramos tener la foto de toda la comunidad, administradores y tu persona. Agradecidos una vez más de todo corazón por esta excelente ponencia. Han habido más de 500 teachers conectados. Yo sé que muy felices y satisfechos con todo lo recibido el día de hoy. No basta más que leer todos sus comentarios y agradecimientos en nuestra página en Facebook. Ahora vamos a continuar. Mientras tanto, tenemos lo que estaban esperando hace buen rato, que ya nos estaban pidiendo el exit ticket. Bien, recuerden que el exit ticket es el formulario de registro de asistencia. Va a estar disponible solamente por 15 minutos. Deben respetar las minúsculas y mayúsculas que aparecen ahí. Las primeras palabras, desde el HTTPS, // no varían, nunca varían, siempre son lo mismo, igual que /cat/li, lo mismo, siempre va a ser lo mismo, eso no varía, /. Lo único que varía es desde donde viene ETiP. Desde ahí empieza a variar en cada webinar. Para este webinar es ETiP, que son nuestras siglas, English Teachers in Perú, ¿no? La I siempre es minúscula. Y 1 ST, ¿no? The first. Este es nuestro link para registrar su asistencia. Como ustedes saben, para que no hayan dudas después, porque a veces siempre quedan algunas preguntas respecto a la constancia de participación, aclararles que la constancia de participación es por todo el ciclo de webinars. Este ciclo de webinar ha empezado de manera maravillosa con la presencia de Miss Patricia Arbona y tenemos 11 webinars más que se vienen. Se les entrega la constancia al finalizar el ciclo de webinars, sumando todas esas horas de participación, de manera que también la constancia es mucho más efectiva y productiva para ustedes, porque van a reunir más de 32, 36 horas, me parece. Luego les vamos a dar el número exacto. Pero deben de registrar su asistencia en cada uno de los webinars. Algo más, pedimos solamente, porque saben que todo este evento, todo lo que realizamos es completamente gratuito, no hay ningún pago por absolutamente nada, pero lo que sí les pedimos es el respeto hacia lo que el ponente comparte con tanto cariño con nosotros de manera amable y solidaria, puesto que son conocimientos que de repente, pues a nosotros, muchos de nosotros, ¿no? Particularmente mi persona también, aún nos falta y estamos en ese proceso de aprendizaje. Siempre hay algo nuevo que aprender. Entonces hay que aprovecharlo y vamos a considerar en cada exit ticket sus respuestas, porque en cada exit ticket van a tener 3 preguntas sobre el webinar y de esas 3 preguntas, como mínimo 2 deberían de estar bien respondidas. Yo sé que no van a tener ningún problema porque están atentos a todo el webinar y a toda la ponencia, pero no va de más la aclaración en este momento. Bien, ya hemos dejado ahí el exit ticket y pasamos en este momento con Miss Pamela Salazar and Miss Sulamita Chupden, please, para presentar lo que tenemos para mañana sábado.
Good evening, dear teachers. For tomorrow, we have another amazing and interesting webinar. The topic is Fundamental Approaches and Methods for CLT. This webinar will be presented by Leonardo Mercado, a great speaker and professional. So, Ms. Pamela, could you share with us the objectives of this webinar, please?
Of course, dear Miss Suli, thank you so much. Well, for tomorrow we have a great webinar with this guest, Leonardo Mercado, and the objectives, the learning objectives for tomorrow are, we will address the key elements in communicative language teaching and learning as they are applying in the classroom, both face-to-face and virtual classes. We will address systematic approaches for promoting second language acquisition while maintaining high levels of motivation and engagement. And also we will discuss practical examples and assess our background knowledge in teaching with a standardized methodology exam questions. They are the objectives for our webinar tomorrow. Don't miss it. You are all invited to this interesting webinar. Thank you so much.
Okay, don't forget, dear teachers, at 6 p.m. tomorrow, we will be waiting for you.
Yes. También decirles, queridos teachers, queridos colegas, que todo este ciclo de webinars está exclusivamente diseñado y alineado a muchos temas que yo sé muchos docentes están en este momento estudiando y preparándose. Tenemos para los docentes que trabajamos en instituciones públicas, bueno, se viene el examen de nombramiento, el examen de contrato, el examen de ascenso y todos los ponentes han aceptado y también están prestos a poder desarrollar en cada uno de los webinars temas que están alineados para ello, para poder fortalecer esa preparación que todos queremos tener para poder lograr nuestro objetivo con respecto a estos exámenes. Y el día de mañana, como ya lo mencionaron Miss Zuli, Miss Pamela, tenemos enfoques fundamentales de la metodología de la enseñanza del inglés. El Communicative Language Teaching, para nosotros es el enfoque comunicativo, del idioma. El día de mañana va a estar compartiendo con nosotros Mr. Leonardo Mercado. Este es un tema que está considerado dentro del temario también y esperamos su audiencia a las 6 de la tarde. Bien, estimados colegas, nos despedimos. Todo el equipo administrativo de English Teachers in Peru. Son todos los corazones, las caritas que están detrás de todos estos eventos que compartimos con ustedes, que lo hacemos siempre pensando solo en aportar en el desarrollo profesional de cada uno de nosotros. Quien les habla, Miss Mariela Condorena. Tenemos dentro del equipo administrativo a Miss Kimberly Linares de Arequipa, Ángela Salazar, Arequipa, David Cuadros de Ayacucho, Jaime Luis Quispe de Cajamarca, Sulamita Chubden de Cajamarca, Miss Oshin Flores de Camaná, Miss Catherine Novoa de Chiclayo, Diana Chafloc de Chiclayo, Pamela Salazar de Chiclayo, Nefti Fortés de España, Curvilela, Huancayo, Miriam Córdoba, Huancayo, Maite Flores de Huacho, Rubén Rumi de Huánuco, Evelyn Pita de Quitos, Mayra Ríos de Lima, Yuli Millones, Daisy Apolinario, Yulisa de la Cruz, Gabriel Bayona, Lilia Espinosa de Lima, José Ortega de Puno, Kevin Laura de Tacna, y queremos este día, con mucha pena, creo que es uno de los primeros webinars que iniciamos después de un largo periodo de tiempo, después de la pérdida de una de nuestras administradoras muy, muy querida, Miss Tabita Anaya de San Martín, quien ha puesto su corazón en esta comunidad y a quien queremos mucho y nunca vamos a olvidar, y cada actividad y cada webinar que damos siempre van considerando su corazón como parte de nuestra familia y siempre teniéndola en mente como una maestra inspiradora, una gran madre y una gran amiga. We are educators, we're born to make a difference. Ese es el lema para todos nosotros. Bien, ahora sí, creo que estamos prestos para poder compartir o encender las camaritas, querida Patricia, para poder despedirnos todos. Misuli, Kevin, ok, excelente. Querida Patricia, una vez más, ya para finalizar este webinar, de todo corazón, realmente eres grandiosa, eres un ser humano bello, eres una persona muy noble, yo lo digo de todo corazón, porque siempre he estado presta sin pedir absolutamente nada a cambio para compartir con todos los maestros. Eres una persona que sabe y conoce mucho y que le encanta compartir. Realmente te respetamos y queremos mucho desde la comunidad.
Ay, yo te agradezco mucho las palabras, ha sido muy generosa, pero yo creo que en este momento que estamos pasando, yo creo que tenemos que ayudarnos entre todos. El año pasado, les cuento que cambió 180 grados mi vida, mi vida profesional, porque me empezaron a conocer en el mundo. Y bueno, y yo soy con ustedes así, y yo soy así, y bueno, y he empezado a tener unos contactos tan grandes, y me solicitan, y me siento tan bendecida por esto, porque yo también estoy aprendiendo un montón de cosas, estoy viajando toda la semana por todos lados, es increíble lo que me está pasando, y conocerlos a ustedes, y que yo el año pasado tímidamente me comuniqué con vos. Yo creo que en este momento uno necesita compartir, y yo me siento bien compartiendo. ¿Por qué voy a tener todo lo que sea acá adentro y guardármelo? No, al contrario, yo todos los días estoy aprendiendo, los alumnos me han enseñado mucho, mis colegas me han enseñado mucho, y yo creo que ya siempre le digo a mis alumnos, si yo he llegado hasta donde llegué el día de hoy es gracias a ustedes, porque ustedes me enseñaron un montón y me marcaron el camino. Drama empezó en el profesorado gracias a mis alumnas, porque yo me di cuenta que les faltaba algo. Bueno, el asunto es poder captar eso de los alumnos. Hay veces que uno les pasa de largo, pero como ellos pueden expresarse, se expresan normalmente sin decir palabras, si uno es observador suficiente, lo capta. Y bueno, y es maravilloso. Así que soy yo la agradecida que ustedes me hayan permitido compartir mi experiencia con ustedes. Y bueno, seguimos en este camino de compartir. La labor de ustedes, yo realmente los admiro, el equipo porque la tarea que están haciendo en concientizar y en cambiar la educación, porque yo también estoy en eso, estoy por todos lados, también los asiáticos están trabajando afanosamente con el cambio de educación porque es muy tradicionalista. La nuestra también, no está lejos de la de ellos. Está tan arraigado lo tradicionalista, y a mí me pesa porque yo veo que están saliendo alumnas de profesorado mal formadas, no tienen el bagaje que necesitan, entonces vuelven a repetir el aprendizaje que ellos tuvieron de chica. ¿Por qué? Porque todo contenido. Entonces falta la práctica, y bueno, y por ahí los alumnos se quejan, pero no llega. ¿Por qué? Porque el sistema es tradicionalista. Entonces la fuerza la tenemos que hacer nosotros. Porque, por ejemplo, en España, allá empezaron con el cambio educativo ellos, porque se dieron cuenta que pasa de allá, ustedes ahora tienen un nuevo gobierno, cambia el gobierno, todo para afuera y viene lo nuestro, y construyen y deconstruyen. Y estamos así, entonces nunca podemos progresar. Entonces empezaron ellos a cambiar la educación, y bueno, y ahora están teniendo metodologías activas, y los chicos, bueno, realmente ya se han recibido y cuentan la experiencia, y bueno, hay que trabajar así, siendo innovador, saliendo de la zona de confort, conocer gente como son ustedes, que están en lo mismo que yo, y es gratificante. Yo me siento feliz de estar con ustedes y de poder compartir lo que hacemos y lo que sabemos hacer. Eso es lo importante. Así que una vez más, muchísimas gracias a todos. Y los admiro.
Gracias a ti, querida Patricia, gracias realmente. Y a todo el equipo maravilloso de administradores, son mis colegas, son mis amigos, son mis hermanos, mis hermanas, son todo.
Una familia.
Juntos haciendo cosas, locuras detrás de cámaras y tratando de organizarnos y apoyar todos con su tiempo, en sus cosas, en sus instituciones, pero siempre encuentran un espacio para la comunidad. Yo, queridos amigos, colegas, a todos los administradores también, les agradezco de corazón que siempre estén aquí. Nos despedimos el día de hoy, Miss Sulamita Chupden, parte del equipo administrativo, el teacher Kurt Hai Vilela Matos, teacher Kevin Mario Laura de la Cruz, Miss Pamela Salazar, Miss Kimberly Linares, Miss Catherine Novoa, qué lindo está su fondo, Miss Catherine. Miss Ángela Salazar, que le hemos extrañado hoy día, Miss Angelita, Miss Maite Flores, Miss Dianita, Miss Diana Carla Chafloc, teacher José Ortega detrás de toda la transmisión, y todos los otros corazones administradores que están por ahí detrás siempre apoyando. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Bye, bye.
Gracias, nos vemos. Muchísimas gracias. Que Dios los bendiga.